Okay, so today we're going to be forging an axe. This is the mild steel that I'm going to be using as the axe head. It is 2 inches on height, 4 inches on length, and 1 inch on width. So we're going to make sure to get a 1 inch mark down here, down the middle, because we're going to have to cut a line in here so that we can fit our high carbon bit inside of here. Before we begin cutting, some of the benefits to using mild steel as the primary steel is that it's much softer when it's cold and when it's hot. So you can move it much faster. Some guys will punch out high carbon steel axe heads, and it's a lot harder if you're doing it by hand, but if you have a press, that's definitely the way to go. High carbon steel this size is really difficult to find, and it's pretty expensive. So I prefer to use mild steel as the head, and one of the downsides though is that you will have to forge weld a high carbon bit inside the front, and that's not always an easy thing to do. So the tool that I'm going to be using to punch the axe eye is just a chisel welded to a piece of rebar. One important thing to do is make sure you grind the tip flat. And as you use it, there is a chance that these tips will flare out. You want to make sure you're looking out for that as you're punching the axe and grind those off immediately. Because that basically what will happen is it'll get stuck inside of the eye and you can't get it out, and it just ends up wasting a lot of heat and time. So this is an axe jig that I made. It's just a bunch of scrap steel I welded together. It's real nice for trying to punch an axe by hand, so that when you're using the punch, the axe doesn't slip around everywhere. And I also have this this tool to put a fuller in the front. Makes it look real nice. So here's just a quick glance at what it looks like. Nothing special, just a bunch of junk steel welded up together. Before we begin punching the axe, it's important that we get a very straight initial punch. You should spend a good amount of time making sure it's absolutely perfect. It'll save you so much time later. I usually do a little mark, 1.25 inches from the back, and that's where I'll put the middle of my punch. Alright, so we are punched through pretty much, and a good trick to make sure your punch stays straight is you punch from one side and then you walk over to the other side and you start punching from that side. Some people will flip the actual billet around, but with this jig I just find it easier to walk around the anvil and just keep punching. So for my high carbon bit, I have a piece of 8670. It's generally a good axe making steel. I mean, there's definitely better options, but this is just some extra scrap I have. So you don't have to worry about the size as long as it's, long enough to fit into the slot. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut barbs into this side so that when we go to fit the axe, it'll bite into the steel, and then we'll close it over it, and then from there we'll heat it up to forge welding temperatures and begin forge welding. barbs I was talking about. Just cut them in with the chisel, whatever you have, and then we'll grab into the steel. So we'll throw it back in the forge, get it cleaned up, and then begin forge welding. Before we go to forge weld the bit in, there's several things to consider. For one, you want to clean the intersection with the wire brush. Get all that slag out, because that's oxidation. You don't want oxidation in there. The next step, we're going to be using also some borax. We're gonna throw some borax flux in the middle of the eye, and then we're going to ram the high carbon bit into the center. We'll close it up, and then from there, we'll forge weld it. Alright, so we got the high carbon bit in. It's not forge welded yet. So the next step is to put it in the forge and let it soak for a while. You want the whole thing to be super hot. Because sometimes the outside will be forge welding temp, but not the inside. So just let it soak there for a while, what longer you think. I usually let it sit for about, I don't know, 5 to 8 minutes. So we have two different styles of drifts. This is going to be our finishing drift, and this is going to be our initial drift. It's a tomahawk or hammer drift, and I use that to initially stretch the eye, and then I'll finish it with this size. Okay, so we have these lugs pretty much where we want them. Kind of like this. You're gonna get a little bit of a loop on top, but don't worry about that. We can straighten that up on the anvil, and I usually grind the top flat as well. This is the finishing drift, and the goal is to keep each side the same size. So you'll go through the top first, then you go through the bottom, then through the top, and then through the bottom. It's important not to try to you want to work fast as it's hot, but if it's starting to cool down, throw it back in the forge. You won't regret it, because this is where you can ruin your axe. Alright, so now we have the axe forge welded, we have it rough shaped, and now it's time to do some rough grinding on it to get it to a shape you want, and get rid of defects. Like if you see right here, there's a little dip on the bottom. That was where I was putting the drift in, and I got that section a little too thin, and it drew it down. Alright, so now we're going to start heat treat for the axe head. So when heat treating an axe, it's important that you check for colors. So you're going to need to get a piece of sandpaper. It can either be a regular piece of sandpaper, or you can cut up an old belt that you're gonna throw away. And you need to figure out if your carbon bit is a water hardening steel or an oil hardening steel. In this case, it's an oil hardening steel. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna heat it up to probably like a bright orange, or yeah, probably bright orange. And I'll dunk the tip in, pull it out, and I'll use the sandpaper, and I'll scrub the end. Now I'm going to wait. It'll turn like a chrome color, and I'm going to wait until it turns like a bronze. All right, it's a bronze. Alright, so I got my maple cut out for the handle. This was just some scrap wood I had. You can do a lot of different things. I like to put like a little arch on the back and a little notch right here on the front. So this piece is definitely too thick. So I'm gonna have to take it to the grinder and get it whittled down. You can also use a draw knife, that works pretty good. One of the important things is you can get your center line and then use the top of your axe and set it on top like this, so like upside down, and you use a pencil to draw the top. The reason why you want to do that is because you want it to be as accurate as possible to the top. This gives you less gaps and it just looks better overall. Alright, so now the top is grinded down to a rough shape, just above the lines. The axe does not fit on yet. It's still a little too big, but that's good because you want to stop just a little bit before. Next step is to grab a rasp and you're going to just clean it up. Alright, so now we have the top to a nice general shape for an axe. Now we're going to start working this handle. We're going to get this smoothed out, and you don't have to get it totally finished, but you want to get it generally the shape that you want it. Pretty much ready to be sanded. And from there, once we get that done, then we'll come back to the top and we'll get it fitted to the axe head. Alright, so I've been filing it for a while now, and it looks pretty good. It's pretty close, but not quite there. So fitting up real nice. I do want it to go a little bit further because I want the top of the wood to stand a little bit proud, so I'm gonna file a little bit more down here. And after that, we'll start the cut down the middle and make the wedge. Okay, so I have my center line marked. You can see it right there. And I went ahead and marked right here at the lugs. And that's gonna tell us where we need to stop. When we cut this, we're going to use a bandsaw to cut a line down here, and that's where we're going to fit the wedge in, and then we can clean it up later. Start real slow. Just tap it real gentle. Now we'll flip it upside down and we'll just hit it in. right, so now it's time to start putting the finish on the axe. I like to soak the axe head in boiled linseed just for a while. You can do it up to like 3 days, but I usually come back and finish the handle up. So you're just going to get boiled linseed and just wipe it on there. And it's going to soak it up, so come back every hour, I'd say, and then wipe it on again. All right, the axe is finished. Went and chopped some wood with it. It's all good. The edge held up. It's not sharpened yet. It still has the bevel from the grinder. One thing I forgot to mention earlier is that since with these types of axes, since it's a mild steel head, you want to make sure you can see your high carbon bit at the end. See that line right there? That's the high carbon bit at the edge, and that's gonna hold an edge real well. So make sure you can see that so you don't instantaneously get a massive dent in your axe the first swing you take on it. But with that, thank you guys for watching, and I hope you guys have a great day.